Good evening. Welcome to Pub Theology. Guys, we're back. Yay. We're back after a long, hot summer here in Wisconsin without any Pub Theology to slake our thirst.
Oh, we were still here sometimes.
I was here, yeah. I was here pretty
You guys
regularly.
Right, I guess. I was here once in a while too, but we weren't drinking together.
Yes.
And we weren't slaking our thirst for theology, guys.
That is very true.
That's it. Hey, if you're new to Pub Theology, you've never watched this before, this is a time we gather around the table, we drink beer, and we talk about God and deep truth and all the things relating to that. My name is Brandon. I'm joined by Mike and Taylor. If you have watched this before, you're like, well, where's Ben? Why is he missing opening night? Actually, Ben was here.
Yeah.
Ben was right here in the room. But then he needed to go do some ministry. Somebody needed him, so he went and he's taking care of that. But we're here. We're here in Copper State. Hey, we want to give a quick shout out to the people here at Copper State, to the owners, to the staff here. We love that they give us this space to use so that we can enjoy this conversation, hang out together, have some awesome conversation. And I want to give a shout out and a thank you to you if you're joining us online. We really appreciate that you're a part of this program, and if you've never joined us before, you may not really know how this works. But as we talk, we're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff, and we're just going to gab about theology and the Bible and news and things going on in the world and in your lives and all that stuff. As we do that, we want you to chime in. We'd love for you to drop a comment, drop a question, drop a thought. Let us know that you're here. And we'll try our best to interact with you to bring that into our conversation. So we got a lot of things going on with Pub Theology this year, right?
Yeah,
like
I'd
some
say
new
so.
stuff, right, Taylor?
Oh, yeah. I think, man, I've got so many ideas. I don't really know what to do with them yet. Some of them. So I've got some cool ideas right now. We want to interview people of different faiths. So that means we've got one Muslim coming up. We've got I think we were thinking about a Jewish rabbi, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I would love to do one person from every church in the Green Bay area, but maybe we'll start with just one from every different denomination in the area. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, we'll see what we're doing.
I've been in talks at one point with like an Orthodox Jewish rabbi who I used to live next to. So I mean, I thought that would be kind of cool.
Should we get both rabbis on
How
and
cool
have
would
them
that
do
be,
like
right?
a rabbi
Right.
off?
Yeah.
or
yeah,
a
'cause,
Shema off.
Well, because the one that the rabbi, the synagogue he's from is a little bit more reformed, if I'm understanding correctly.
The one that I
Yeah.
know, yeah. So, yeah, he's definitely more of a. I don't want to say. I don't really know how they decide on this stuff, like what their terminology is. But he's definitely not as like super traditional. And he still does like. I mean, he's still got his shawl on. He's still got the little yarmulke
yeah.
on, but he doesn't have the little hair loops on the side.
Okay. Yeah.
And maybe they just are a little bit different.
Well, and you see the one we lived next to, they were ultra orthodox. So I kind of had that conversation at one point. I was like, "Do you guys we have denominations? What do you guys have?" And they kind of had something similar to it. They just have a level of orthodoxy, really. So I think that's going to be kind of fun.
Taylor, we already had somebody who commented in. This is our
is-
opening night of the season. Should I just answer this question right away?
Yes, please do.
Is there a particular topic tonight, Carlton? Sort of. So here's the way that our live show is changing just a little bit. Because Taylor was talking about having these interviews, a lot of those are going to be pre-recorded. So we'll have a specific topic for a lot of those pre-recorded conversations that are going to be published on our Facebook page. We'll give you some information about that later on. But for this live show, it's going to be more like a digest, where we're going to talk about stuff going on in the world today, look at it through kind of the lens of what is a theological question being raised here, what are some truths the competing truths maybe, and what do we think about that? And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Bible. We're going to open up Bible passages. This year especially, we're going to look at, in every one of these sessions, we're going to be looking at something Jesus said that's maybe difficult, or that's a little bit like, what does Jesus mean by that? And try to kind of tear a little bit into that. Then we will have a topic each hour. We'll have something that we'll be digging into a little deeper every night. Sometimes it'll be a question that's raised. Maybe somebody sent us a great question and we'll dig deep into that. Or maybe it'll be like tonight, we're actually going to talk about memes. So Carlton, if you're interested in memes, we'll be talking about memes tonight.
We've got great ones.
Not just any memes, not just lame memes. We're going to be actually looking at anti-Christian memes. And how would you as a Christian maybe answer that? Or maybe not a Christian. Maybe you're not a Christian. You see this again across your social media. How do you respond to it when you see this thing? So we're going to look at some of that stuff. So I hope that you'll look forward to that part of the conversation. Hey, you know what? We should get started by doing what we always do when we start, which is asking, what are you drinking? I mean, it's not pub theology if you're not drinking,
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
because
you know
that's
what?
part of how this works.
Let me go
Actually, if you think about it, there was a tradition. Martin Luther,
Okay.
he would invite people over to his house, seminary students usually, and they would drink beer that his wife brewed. Martin Luther's wife was a great beer brewer. And then they would talk about theology. And Martin Luther would just say whatever came to his mind. And then his students would write it down.
That doesn't
And
sound
you can
like him.
you can buy these books that are called Table Talk, and it's kind of funny because actually, like, you look at these Table Talk books, they are. Sometimes Luther says some of the worst things Luther ever said were in the Table Talks, probably because he'd had a few. But it doesn't mean that he was always wrong. I mean, a lot of stuff he had to say was great, but.
Carlton, I'm starting to like you a lot.
Yeah. All right. Hey, we appreciate that you're chiming in, man. This is great. We're glad that you're joining us. So I'm drinking the Oktoberfest. Mike, what are you drinking?
So I'm pretty excited because Silent Canary is a double IPA that went away for a while, and they have brought it back. So it is on tap. So Silent Canary, a double IPA.
Oh, man.
Nice. And I am drinking Berry Picker. I remembered it for the first show.
And it's a sour.
It is a sour, as always, but it is absolutely delicious. I think they really, really knocked it out of the park. So this is me formally saying they need to either bottle it or can it because I want it.
Sure. All right. So let's start with talking about what's going on in the world today.
Sure.
What's in the news? What's happening in the world today? Because when you come to the pub, part of the idea about coming to the pub, right, is solve the world's problems over a drink, right? So we're going to solve the world's problems. What's happening? If you're watching us, we hope that you would chime in with some thoughts, maybe something that's of interest to you, a question, a thought, a comment about what's going on out in the news. But guys, I saw an interesting thing today. So as some of you know, I was in Israel back in May, and I had a chance to visit the site that they thought was the Pool of Siloam. And when we were there, we got to sit on some steps and look at kind of this excavation site where they were like, we're pretty sure there's more steps down into the pool there, but we haven't excavated, and they're kind of taking their time with it. Well, so I just saw this news article. I'm going to share this. The picture that you see in this news article, so I don't know if you were watching online, if you can see my little mouse cursor there, but there's kind of a set of steps, there's like some dirt, there's a broad step, there's a set of steps, and then there's a longer step, and then you go further up and there's like a fence. So we were actually sitting up like along that fence, and that was basically where the level of the dirt was. It was a little bit below that. And what you see further down, those several steps in that longer ledge at the bottom of the picture, that's all stuff that was still under the dirt when we were there, just a few months ago.
Oh,
That's pretty crazy.
And now they've uncovered that, they've excavated that, and they're saying with a lot of confidence, this is the actual Pool of Siloam, that this stuff has been covered by dirt and rocks for 2,000 years, and that this is the spot where, according to the Gospels,
So
Jesus...
I'm testing myself
Yeah, go ahead.
on this, right? So the Pool of Siloam then would have been the pool where the blind man went to, right? Jesus put mud on his eyes and said, now go wash yourself in the pool. And
That was
is
one
the
of
pool?
the stories at the Pool of Siloam. Yep.
All right. What are the other ones?
The other one, there was a paralyzed man, a disabled man. Not really sure exactly what that meant. He wasn't able to walk, not able to use maybe all of his limbs or only some of his limbs. And one of the things that Jews of the time believed, it's hard to tell from history or from the Gospels. There's a lot of writing about this, but it's not really clear if this ever actually happened, that the pool would bubble and churn. And when it would do so, supposedly, if you got in, the first person to get into the pool when it started to bubble and churn would be healed of their disease. And there was a Jewish thought or belief, or maybe it was a superstition, that it was an angel coming and stirring the waters. And when this angel comes and stirs the waters, the angel's power will heal you. So this paralyzed man is on the edge of the pool, and he's trying to get in. And Jesus comes and he sees him, and he asks, well, what are you doing here? And the man says, well, I've been trying to get into the pool when the waters are churning, but every time they churn, somebody else gets in front of me, and I'm not able to get in in time.
Yeah.
And then Jesus asks him, do you want to be healed? And the guy kind of gives an interesting sort of half response. And what's kind of fascinating about that when you think about it is that it seems almost like this guy, he's made a living out of begging for money, right? And he's not quite sure what's going to happen if he doesn't have his disability anymore. What now?
Right.
And Jesus is like, do you actually want to be healed or not?
Yeah. We had a really long conversation. If anyone's ever watched The Chosen, that it's in season 2, you get to see that scene. It's a pretty heart-wrenching scene for sure. But that is definitely a conversation we had in our small groups when we were kind of walking through that question, do you want to be healed? Then trying to like open that up to what are the things that you're praying for? Do you actually want that? The things that you think, my life is so hard, I wish God would take this away. Do you really want that? It's a really tough question to ask and answer, I think, if you're really like true to yourself, I think. And
Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah.
So that's
I'm picturing like the biggest wave pool in one of the dells, where everyone's just waiting for that big wave to start after it's been stopped for 15 minutes, and then everyone just kind of like
rushes to get in.
rushes to get in.
That's
but
funny.
This is way cooler because Jesus is now there.
Right, right. So what I find interesting about this particular news item is that there's still questions in the minds of a lot of people about, number one, whether or not any of the histories, like the historical records or the Gospels themselves, are historically accurate. And do the Jews really belong in Jerusalem? Does Israel really have a claim to this land? And this is just another piece of archaeological evidence that lines up exactly with what the Bible has to say historically. Now, that doesn't prove that the Bible is true, right? It doesn't mean that all the claims the Bible makes are true. But it does mean that the history that those guys were writing, that we call the Gospels, are based on actual things that happen. And one thing that's kind of fascinating about this is that the Jews were driven out in 70 AD from Jerusalem, according to history. And that area was settled by Arabs, and a lot of that stuff got covered over because if you don't take care of a spot in the Middle East, it gets covered by dust and sand and dirt pretty quickly. It doesn't take very many years. So there are people who make the claim that the Gospels were written maybe 200 years after the time of Jesus, like around 200 AD and stuff like that. But then you come across something like this, where there was a detail written in the Gospels that then shows up in the archaeology of a spot that would have been buried under sand in the year 200 AD. How would the person writing would even know that this place existed? And so at least gets you to stop and think, well, maybe there's some historical accuracy to these Gospels. That doesn't mean, once again, that maybe you don't believe yet the rest of what it says, but at least it suggests there's some historical accuracy to what the Gospels are claiming.
I love that angle that you took that, Brandon, because I was immediately thinking the tangible, technical side of digging that out right now. And obviously, with something that delicate, you're not going to have excavators in there. And so if that whole thing was probably hand dug in the time that you left there, to what that picture looked like now is just incredible.
Yeah, that's a thought too. It'd be interesting to watch what process they took.
Like a time lapse of it.
Yeah, to see the guys working there. That'd be kind of cool. What are you guys bringing? What's in the news that you guys have seen?
So I have a story that I came across, and you guys are going to be like, really, Mike? This isn't newsworthy, but work with me here for a bit. There was actually a photographer in Arizona, and he was taking a picture of the blue moon that occurred back in August. So again, you're going to be upset with me because it already took place. It's not coming up. But as he took that picture, a plane went through his picture of the moon. And so when he put it out on Twitter, tried to find what that plane was, they narrowed it down. The actual plane was a JetBlue plane that flew through his picture of a blue full moon.
It's a lot of blue going on there.
Which is a lot of blue going on. And the cool thing about it, though, is, or maybe the not cool thing about it is the next blue moon that's going to occur is not until the year 2035, I think it was, or 2036. So it's a decade off when this is going to occur. But the reason I share this is not only a cool picture, and I believe he is selling it for, you can buy a 42 or 16 and a half inch by 23 inch for $135. That's unframed.
Okay.
So you can purchase this picture, which is actually pretty incredible if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah.
With the airplane going through. But the reason I brought it up is, to me, a lot of the conversation was what the coincidence of this taking place, which it looks like coincidence. And I don't want to speculate here because I don't know what God's thinking, but we often talk about God's humor. And to me, this is just like, kind of cool how God is giving, he basically is giving a beautiful image of his creation for so many people to see, and unfortunately people are missing out on, that's God's creation there.
Interesting.
That's God's timing, that's God's creation. And if you still think that looking at that full blue moon and the fact that an airplane is flying through there and that there isn't a God, I don't know.
That's interesting.
That was my thought. So you can run with a lot of different things.
So as I'm looking at, and we don't have that picture up on our broadcast screen here, but I'm looking at your computer, Mike, and seeing that picture there. What strikes me is the size of the airplane against the size of the moon.
Yeah.
It's like this massive globe glowing with like some blues and some almost reds, some pinks and stuff. And you got this tiny little shadow of an airplane over it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like,
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
the incomparability of the size of this thing compared to what mankind can create is just kind of an interesting thing. Carlton made a comment about blue ice along with that. Maybe did he drop some blue ice, or maybe did they have some blue ice on JetBlue? I don't know.
Probably some blue ice on the plane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I dropped a link to the picture in the chat line.
That's
for you to
awesome.
Take a look at.
That's awesome. Now, Carlton, by the way, this is exactly what we want. Is if you're watching this and you're seeing the comments and you're seeing this one person he's dropping a lot of questions, that's awesome. He's interacting. Hey, people, if you're out there watching this, take a page from Carlton's book here, man. He's doing great. He's interacting with us. We hope that you all do that. I hope this is your invitation. Join us here. He's got some great questions, things about angels and free will. Man, there's a lot there. There's a lot to answer.
That's actually
Taylor, what are you
something
thinking?
I wanted to touch base on a little bit, because even if we can't get to all the questions during the live stream itself, that is one of the things that we have planned, is doing like pre-recorded, just answering questions shows too. So if we can't get to all the questions on the live stream, I would love to go through and do some pre-recorded shows.
Absolutely.
Of just answering and kind of delving deep, because Carlton, I love your questions, but man, those are some deep questions.
It would be hard to answer
Man,
those in the space of the time we have tonight. Yeah. But how about I just maybe I'll just take one of those questions.
Yeah.
You don't want to just go yes, no, yes.
Yeah. That will do that.
That was in no particular order.
Now, obviously, we're coming at this from the perspective of we're a bunch of guys who we believe the Bible is true. We believe in what the Bible has to say. And if you're watching us, and maybe you don't believe that, we understand. Everybody's at a different place in their walk of faith or not faith or understanding of truth. So we want this to be an open place for you to have those conversations. Yeah. So don't just take our word for it. We're going to say what we think, what we believe the Bible teaches. And you're welcome to do your own investigation on anything. And you can come back and you can argue with us. I'm open to that. But, all right, for now.
Carlton says why, so I'm going to go for it here real quick.
All right.
So I'm going to say, did the angels before the fall have free will? Yes. I mean, Satan did fall.
Yeah. And he was able to fall, so he must have had free will, right?
And then if yes, did they continue to have free will? I'm thinking no. Didn't God change something where He separated them, and He put the ones who followed Satan were in hell, and then the ones. It's not like I don't believe the angels in heaven can now change their mind.
Yeah,
it's not possible.
Yeah.
And when we get to heaven, no, I don't think we won't have a free will to decide to do something wrong. We're in heaven. We have new bodies, and we're there to serve God and celebrate that.
That is a huge question. Can I just say thanks? That's a good summary, Mike. But man, that is a nuanced question.
It
for
is
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was the quick one for Carlton.
Yeah, and okay. Then number 4. What was your answer to that, Mike?
If yes, I guess my answer to 3 was no. But if it was yes, isn't there a chance we will rebel? I think that. I'm going to connect that with, and there's so many people that will make the comment, I know Grandma's looking down on me. And in that time, I don't want to upset that person that they're finding comfort in Grandma's looking down on me, but does Grandma really want to see what sin I'm doing and what's going on in this, the war is still going on? How is Grandma enjoying heaven if she's still seeing what's going on here? So if I'm in heaven and I have a chance to rebel or have free will to do something, that to me is not a new body that God's given me.
Yeah, I think I might even add this to it. We'll have a perfected will.
Yes.
It's the way that Scripture seems to present it, is that my will, it's not that I won't have a free will, it's that my will is going to be transformed completely to the will that says I want to do what God wants me to do always. And part of that is because I will know God and see God face to face. See, part of, I think, honestly, I don't want to get too deep into why do we sin right now. That's a big question. But can I just maybe offer this idea? If God was sitting here in the room in front of me, would I be like, hey, God, I'm going to go ahead and pull out my phone and start looking up some pornography? No, I would not be doing that, right? If I could see him. Now, of course, that's an interesting thought. He is actually in the room with me.
He is, yep.
Right? And part of the reason I might fall into that is because I am forgetting that he's right there with me. But that perfected will says, I don't want to do it.
Well,
The desire to sin has been taken away from
Yeah,
me.
I kind of want to like touch base on that a little bit too. Is that we also, the angels the angels were missing a piece of the puzzle, and that was Jesus coming to earth at the time, coming and taking our place as sin. So even when we do go to heaven,
Yeah.
at that point we will have seen what had happened, what Jesus has done for us, and that will eliminate the want, I guess, or the desire or the temptation for us to sin.
Yeah, I think Scott makes an interesting point, and I think it's a good point that there's a complexity here that part of the way Scripture presents this is that things are going to be changed and new and different. And how exactly can I give a definitive answer today as to how and why something will be the way it is when I can't even understand? Paul puts it this way, that today we see in part, then we'll see fully. Today it's like we're looking through a dark glass, and then we'll be seeing it face to face. Actually, what's interesting when Paul says that, this is just a total side note, but it's just interesting. The terms Paul uses are really referring to a looking glass, and there was such a thing as a mirror in Paul's day, but a mirror was not. It was mostly like a beaten piece of metal, maybe with some glass, but it wasn't like a mirror like in your bathroom mirror where you can look and be like, hey, it's a crystal clear reflection of me. No.
Backlight.
Yeah, right. Like it was like you look at it and you're like, I can kind of tell, I can kind of make out my face, right? And so Paul is saying it's like looking in a mirror. You can barely see. But when we're there, we're going to see face to face as though this person is standing right in front of me. So that's his point, is that we don't understand fully. We won't understand fully until we're there.
Carlton, good questions. Thanks for posting those in there. And I think, Brandon, you're absolutely right. Don't be afraid if you're watching online just to share some things. We may not get to it in depth. We may not get to it at all, but we'll certainly do our best.
For sure, yeah.
Taylor, did you have something from the news?
No.
You didn't? Okay. I didn't. You started to talk, and I thought I interrupted you. So
No. I was only going to bring up Woodstock, and who wants to talk
Woodstock?
about Woodstock?
like
The whole thing. No, it wasn't Woodstock. It was Burning Man, right?
Oh, you're right. It was
yes.
Burning Man.
Yeah. We were talking about this before the show. There's something about the floods at Burning Man and whether or not that was a warning.
Right.
Maybe we should talk a little bit about warnings and stuff like that. So, Taylor, you wanted to talk about memes tonight.
Yeah, well, I really want to settle this age-old debate. Is it memes or is it memes, as some people say? But
Who says memes?
I know. Who says memes? People do. I don't. Don't look at me like I'm the one that says it.
I have never
But
heard
no,
of this.
I was scrolling through Facebook one day, as one does, and what I ended up coming across was a friend of mine who is actually an atheist, and he posted a meme that in some ways could be considered offensive. So when I ended up looking at this, I don't know, I kind of ran into this issue of like, is this funny? Is it not funny? How do you kind of navigate this? So I sent it to Brandon. Thought, hey, is this funny? What do you think? And it kind of sparked a whole kind of conversations that we thought why don't we bring it up? How do we navigate maybe an offensive meme or an offensive joke, or like, can Christians be funny? That's another. It's an honest to God question. I've had people like, well, then I have such a dark humor, and if I became a Christian, like, I can't joke like that anymore. And where's the fun? So I don't know. How do you navigate that?
Okay. What do you think?
I think you can absolutely be funny.
Okay. Well, we can be funny.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay.
But can you be offensive? I don't know. It really, to be offensive does typically you end up taking some sort of like self-superiority into it.
One of the questions that I might ask is, let me consider a situation.
Okay.
I'm scrolling through my social media, say I'm on Facebook, I'm scrolling through, and one of my friends who is maybe not a Christian or not so friendly to Christianity or whatever posts a meme that is anti-Christian. Mm-hmm. Why should I be offended at that?
As a Christian, or
yeah.
Well, that's a really good question and a really good conversation to have. It's like, Is it offensive because it might lead somebody else away? Like if you feel strong enough in your own faith, I feel strong enough in my faith where I can see this meme that actually we have a gift for you. We're gonna show it to you guys. But
Oh yeah.
oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But like, I feel strong enough in my faith where if I see this, I'm not gonna fall away because of a joke. On the other hand, there are some people that are weaker in faith, and it actually can bring up a deeper theological question that they just maybe don't have the capacity or know the people around them well enough to maybe ask that question, and it kind of tends to make them fall away. It's like, oh, you
Sure.
know what? Maybe I don't believe in a God that's like that. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean,
halfway.
maybe. So here's part of why I asked the question is because what I've experienced is a lot of times Christians will.
Did you just read?
I did see that.
Carlton's
I did see that. Yeah, that's
good.
That's pretty funny.
Anyway.
A lot of times when I hear about somebody getting offended by something like that, I kind of want to know what are you upset about, right? You know, somebody sees something that is opposed to Christianity and they get angry. I've even known people where I had to kind of have conversations where, you know, they told me, well, you know, some Jehovah's Witnesses came to my door and I slammed the door in their face. I said, well, why'd you do that? Well, how dare they show up to my house trying to talk about Jesus the way they do? And I want to say, well, what? How dare they? They believe it's true. Why are you upset? And so it's that question: why are you angry at somebody having an opinion or an idea that opposes your faith?
Yeah.
And I ask that because I wonder if sometimes the reason we get angry is because we ourselves are struggling with doubt. And that it tears at that doubt and it makes us insecure. Because if I'm totally secure in my faith, somebody can post a meme that criticizes Christianity, I'm like, either that's a really funny meme or it's not. I don't care. But it doesn't bother me. I'm not disturbed because I believe this is true. So what am I really upset about?
True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's something that we have to think about as we consider this question. Why would I be offended at this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, there's stuff that can be just plain rude, crude, disgusting. Mm-hmm. And if I see that, I might say, hey, you know, that's kind of just tasteless.
Yeah.
And I might say that to my friend. That's not a good taste. Or I may take the opinion of saying, well, you know, what if somebody said that about a different religion? Would you be still posting it? What if this was a meme about Buddhism or Islam?
Yeah.
Would you still repost it? Or is it only because it's Christianity you feel okay doing it?
Oh, yeah, we are an easy target a lot of
Right.
the time.
But that almost says more about Christians than it does about anybody else.
Yeah, that's true.
If you can make fun of us and there's no repercussions, then that says something. Right?
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong.
So you wanted to show us some memes. Here's what I want to do, Taylor.
Oh, man.
You
Okay,
brought
bring it
in
on.
some memes. Here's
Bring
what I
it
love, is if you would show us a meme, and let's talk about what the meme is actually claiming to do, what is the point it's trying to get across, and then we'll talk about what would you do if how would you respond to your friend who posted it? How's that sound?
Okay, so how are we responding on social media, or how are we responding in person?
Yeah, I'll tell you.
or-
But I don't know.
Well, because I think
Who's
everybody.
your friend?
I think everybody.
Is he somebody you see in person?
Not regularly, no.
Okay.
But I mean, this is something that I think we could really bring up because I think a lot of people have had this situation happen where someone shows them a meme because they're like, oh, you're a Christian, I can show you this Christian meme, but it's like an anti-Christian meme. You're kind of like, oh, okay.
That's pretty funny. That's kind of cute. Not really, but okay. Yeah, I get you.
So yeah, bring it on. Let's do it.
All right. Well, why don't you show us one of the memes then? Taylor?
All right, well,
Go
this
ahead.
is-
You got the memes. Go for it, dude.
Let's start with the first one. This is the one that this sparked the whole thing.
Okay.
Was a section here that says God is love, showing Noah's Ark, bunch of people outside the Ark drowning, and it says terms and conditions apply.
Okay.
I definitely think it's worthy of a good laugh, like we just had.
A chuckle
yeah,
at least.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, because I think what they're asserting is that God is love, and that if God actually loved people, he wouldn't have drowned them.
Okay. Yeah.
I think, see, this is where it's different because, like, on social media, you have a sentence, maybe two, maybe three, to
Right,
respond
right.
to that.
Yeah.
where this goes down to the conversation. If a God is a good God, how would he let people suffer? It's like that question, which is not a 3-sentence answer.
Sure.
So that is something I'd love to like have more in person and kind of go through the term.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a way. I mean, there's so many different ways you could take this. Maybe.
What do you think, Mike? Are you offended by this?
I'm not.
Okay.
Not at all, because I guess what I would direct the person back to is look at the chapters leading up to this picture. There
yeah.
were so many people who knew, based on what Noah was doing, what he set out to do for wasn't it like 70 some years?
120.
120. Thank you. I
Yeah.
was way off. That they had that time, and all they did was ridicule and made fun of Noah.
Yeah.
So it's not like out of nowhere God just said, "Presto, here's an ark," and the rains came down. He zapped Noah and his family in and said, "Nobody gets a chance." So
Right.
God is love.
I mean, if you stood and told somebody for 120 years your house is about to be destroyed,
Right.
and they were like, meh,
Right.
and then they just never left, and then finally the house is destroyed, and they were like, what?
Yeah.
You'd probably be like, well, I
You could have given me
kinda
some warning.
told you,
Yeah.
right?
So
But even-
they're missing the
yeah.
picture. They're missing the whole picture here.
Yeah, yeah, and I like what you said, Mike, about look at the chapters before, even look at the chapter before Noah shows up on the scene, before this whole story starts. And what you see, the couple of chapters before that is one story after another of people like murdering each other and doing all kinds of bad stuff to each other. Like people were awful, and it's like, okay, well, who? If you were to say, all right, are there some people who deserve punishment? If you were to ask that question of any given person, do some people deserve punishment?
Yes.
Almost everybody would say yes. Okay, who decides what deserves punishment?
Mm-hmm.
Do you decide? Are you the guy who ultimately gets to decide? Is it somebody above you? Is it the government? Is it us as a people? Like, who ultimately gets to make that choice?
Yeah.
And so all that the Bible is saying is that there is somebody who gets to ultimately make that choice about what deserves punishment and what that punishment ought to be. And in this case, there were people who were terrible, and somebody deserves punishment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now if you say, well, no, I don't believe that punishment, I don't believe anybody should be punished for anything. Try running a society that way. Try running a world without any consequences. See how that goes.
true.
Right? But, the other thing that I thought about was in that meme, Taylor, was that it says terms and conditions apply, and they do.
Yeah.
That's actually part of the message of Scripture, is that God loves, but in the same way that I love my children. But if my children run away from my home, like what am I going to do, right? Like I'm going to pursue them. I'm going to show them love. I'm going to always say my door is always open. But if they say, "Dad, I don't want anything to do with you, and I never want to see you again," what am I going to do, right?
Yeah.
If my children try to burn down my house and murder their mom and all these, my boys wouldn't do that. My boys are so great they would never do such a thing. Maybe I shouldn't speak too soon, right? I don't imagine that's going to happen. I don't imagine my children will do that. But what if they did? What would I do? Would I at some point have to say, you cannot live in this house if you are going to act this way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it ultimately comes down to, is that I can love a person and still say, but there are consequences for your actions.
So I think in part, I got to thank this guy. Thank you, whoever posted that. You know who you are. Thank you for preaching the gospel via this meme. Our next one was the first one. I want you guys to know also that I spent so much time scrolling and to try to find these memes. It took a lot longer.
Thanks,
than
Taylor,
I
for doing
wanted.
that extra work of
Yeah, thank you.
going through social media memes
I
for
accept tips
for the sake of
and
this.
Venmo.
Oh, yeah? All right. Yeah, well, okay.
All right,
Can I buy you a
so-
beer instead?
Yeah, right. I don't know if this one got a little cut off. I gotta try to read that a little bit better. But it says, "Don't worry, Nick. It's all according to God's plan. So God, 1, creates the universe. 2, give Nick childhood trauma with no healthy way to cope until he ruins everything."
All right. Mike, break down the meme for us. What is this trying to say?
Well, basically, Nick's friend whoever that is, or parent or guy or whatever, he's telling Nick not to worry, and he's giving the response that a lot of people give to someone when either they don't know what to say or they just are trying to give them comfort, and so they say this is all according to God's plan. And at the bottom there, we have a picture of God, whose agenda is to create the universe, and then he's just going to give bad things to certain people for whatever reason.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. I'm thinking about the truth claim here is that, it's trying to indicate, right, that it's as though somehow God was planning to hurt you. Somehow that goes according to God's plan. And, maybe to a certain extent, I'm going to just say this. This may be part of the reason why that sort of trite phrase, well, this is all according to God's plan, doesn't usually help somebody who's in the midst of their hurting. And that's difficult because, like Mike said, sometimes you don't know what to say.
Yeah.
So what do I say to Nick in this situation? One of my thoughts has always been that imagine if you got to sit next to Jesus just before he gets nailed to the cross. Imagine there was like a sort of a pause in the Romans plan, and he gets sort of set aside, and you're invited to come and sit next to him. What do you say to Jesus? Don't worry, Jesus, this is all according to God's plan.
Yeah.
Actually, he's probably the one saying that to you. But this is the point, right? Is like at that point, what do you? But if Jesus was willing to bleed and die, carry all of our sins and sorrows, maybe the answer to a person in suffering is not, don't worry, it's all according to God's plan, but to say, Jesus knows exactly what you're going through, and he still loves you. I don't know what he's got going on right now. I don't understand it. I don't have a clue what God could be planning with this, and I don't know how this is good.
Yeah.
But Jesus is good.
Well, I don't know. I know we really struggle a lot in Western culture that we have to do everything alone. I don't know if that maybe plays a part in that a little bit too. That especially with like emotional issues nowadays, like when they're talking about trauma and emotional trauma in particular. I mean, that's something where a lot of people feel like they have to do that alone.
Sure. Yeah.
And nowhere in Scripture does it say you need to do everything alone. This is something you should do alone on your own all the time. This is where you're built to be in community.
Yeah. That actually gets to another thing, which is maybe you don't have to say anything. If you don't know what to say, just don't say anything. There's this term called ministry of presence, which is where you're just there. And, maybe that person who's saying, I don't understand why I'm going through this pain. Okay, I'm here.
Yeah, I had Tim Keller often tells a story about, I can never remember the guy's name, but he wrote a book about it, and he had lost 3 children. And at the funeral of his last child, as he was sitting there, everyone was trying to come over, and they were trying to say the right thing and buck up, and this is all part of God's plan. And he would seethe because he didn't want them around. But until one guy came over and who had also lost a child, sat next to him. They made polite conversation every once in a while, and like, you doing all right? Yeah, kind of those things. But as he said, once the guy left, he said, I wish you would have never left, because that was the guy that he wanted by him the whole time. So sure. It is part of the. You're right. You don't have to say anything. Why do you feel like you need to?
I'm just reminded something about what you said made me remember this story. The guy who wrote the song "It Is Well with My Soul." I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm sure I could look it up right now, but you don't want to wait for me to do that.
I used it in a funeral sermon, so I should know.
Yeah,
I'm
but
drawing a blank too.
His story. It's a long story, and I can't go into all of it. But basically, he lost all of his children. He had a son who died of a disease, and then he had 2 or 3 daughters who died at sea, and another son who died later on.
Horatio Spafford.
Thank you, Horatio Spafford. And what's fascinating about his story is that it was like they had a son who died, and then he sent his wife and his daughters across the sea, and as they were sailing, something happened. The ship went down, and his wife was rescued, but the daughters were not. And when his wife arrived at their destination on the other side of the sea, she sent a letter back that just said, "Arrived alone, what shall I do?" She didn't know what to do. She was like, I don't, my children are dead, what do I do? And Horatio he tied up his loose ends, he got on the boat, he sailed over to join his wife. But as he was sailing, at one point they were going over a particular spot where one of the sailors came up to him. The captain came up and said, "This is where the ship went down." And he looked down at the water, and that's when he came up with the words for that song. When sorrows like sea billows roll. That was the phrase that went through his mind. And he came up with that response. Even then, I'll sing, it is well with my soul. And that's maybe the great response to all of this. Going through pain.
The captain, the sailor, whoever it was
Whatever.
that came up to him didn't say, "This isn't God's plan."
Right.
God's got a plan. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry, God's got a plan.
He said, "Here's the spot where your daughters were killed," and his response was, "It is well."
It is well with my soul.
soul.
Yeah.
Wow.
Taylor, let's hit one more meme, and then we want to jump into the passage of Scripture. I want to close with the passage of Scripture.
Yeah,
tonight.
of course. Let's do that. Oh gosh, you got to make me choose between.
I know, you had a
3 or
bunch of them.
4, right? Oh
Yeah.
my. And I'm trying to lead. And do I want to go more political? Do I want to more? Let's just do this. Let's just do this because this is one that we're going to run into probably a lot more, and it's a little bit more lighthearted. Here we go. Want to come to church with me? No, thanks. I've got something better planned. And
Wow,
Brings
okay.
out the Tabasco eye drops.
Wow. So, truth claim that it's making is that it would be better to put Tabasco in my eyes than to go and sit through church.
I've been to church many times, and never once have I got Tabasco in my eyes.
So, part of me wants to chuckle at this, in part because I've been to a few church services in some places where I thought, I mean, I'm not going to name any churches, but man, I've had some bad church services I've been through. I'm like, when is this going to end? Maybe the music was just really bad choices. I've been to a couple of churches where I was like, why would you ever choose this song? This song is just awful. I've been in sermons where I thought, I have not followed anything past minute 2, and we're at 27 now.
Yeah.
So it happens. I get it. It's certainly possible that you could say church is a really difficult place to be.
Yeah. I was thinking because this is coming from the atheist perspective that's what. But I like the angle you took there of being the Christian. That's like another Christian asks you, "Would you like to come and worship the Lord that we both will worship? You want to go do that together? Just maybe not at your home church?" You're like, no, and start reaching for your Tabasco sauce. But no, I mean, I've done the same thing. I was excited because it was another Lutheran church. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that. And I got there, and immediately I'm like, I don't like the music.
Yeah.
This guy talks too fast. Nah. Pews
So-
stink.
But here's what I want to ask.
Yeah.
Is that the right response?
No.
I mean, I just expressed that. You just expressed that. But let's ask ourselves the question, are we really responding correctly to this situation?
No. I'm gonna go on a limb.
Whoa.
But
Mike,
it
what
was
do you
again.
think?
It's like it really goes back to that same thing about Zarya. That I love. I love Zarya for doing that because we were driving away from the Phil Wickham concert. We had a great time, the great music. We all were worshiping together.
Oh, that's right. You
and-
told us the story last year.
Yeah, I told them that. And they say, I didn't like this, and I didn't like this, and this woman here was just pulling me out of it. And then Zarya's soft voice in the back going, I was just really happy that everyone was worshiping God together. And it just felt like a dagger to my heart there. I was like, oh, ouch.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. Thank you for exposing
But she's a
my
good
sin.
friend that exposed that and could
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that to you and wasn't just quiet.
Yeah. I'd immediately come out and say, you're right. I was wrong. I'm wrong to think that. Were you going to say something? Did I interrupt
I
you?
was not.
No,
No,
I thought you.
You
Well-
were starting to ask me.
Well, yeah, what I'm thinking about is that, on the one hand, if I see church as a place where I go to get preached to and forced to do stuff that I'm not comfortable with, or to gather around a bunch of people that I think are fake and putting on airs and all that stuff, then maybe I respond this way. And maybe if I go to a church where I think, I'm skeptical, I'm cynical, I think that these people don't believe the right things, or I'm going to be standing in judgment, then yeah, I'm going to walk in there. But that's if I'm the cynic and the skeptic, and I walk into a room full of worshipful people, who's got the problem here?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, wow, look at me. I'm super joyful by being cynical and skeptical while all these people are worshiping. That's not great, right? And if I think, now, maybe there are churches where I walk in and I just go, you know what? I I don't think they've got things, I think the way they're approaching this is just not good. And I could evaluate that and I could speak about that. I went to one church once. It was one of these big mega churches with kind of one of these celebrity pastors. And I thought to myself, it's a little weird when the pastor comes out and everybody whips out their phone so they can get pictures of the pastor. It seems like there's something not quite right here.
Sure.
But even in that situation, can I say, but these are brothers and sisters in Christ. I believe that these people belong with me. Can I at least encourage them in some way? Now, obviously, if you don't believe in this stuff, if you're like, well, I don't believe in this stuff, so I don't want to go and sit in church. Okay. But maybe ask the question, what would compel all of these people to spend their time here?
Yeah.
What is it that's leading them to this place? And maybe there's something there I haven't considered. Maybe there's some good they're trying to do too. Maybe they're doing good for each other. Maybe they band together after they walk out of here and they go do good somewhere else. So we want to at least step away from our cynicism and give the benefit of the doubt, right?
Yeah. I was kind of thinking I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you. I feel like I'm interrupting. No.
I was going to say, for Brandon and I as ministers, I think both of us are in our own church setting so much that we would like to actually step out of it and go with an open mind into other area churches to see what they're doing, to see what's happening, what they offer, with the intent of not criticizing everything that they're doing, but seeing how people worship, seeing what churches are offering as far as their style of worship, or what are they preaching on, what are they doing for a sermon series, things like that, and just have an open mind. But I love how you said that, Brandon. These are people who are either worshiping God together, or maybe they're not in the right spot because they're there for the wrong reason.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to take that meme again too, and just look at it quickly through the atheist perspective, because there are a lot of atheists out there that really do feel that way, that they would rather cause themselves bodily harm than step inside of a church. I don't know if it's necessarily because they think it's stupid. Maybe they're ill-informed. Maybe they grew up and had a poor experience with churches.
Sure.
So I mean, it does kind of give that opportunity to, I don't know, like when my wife and I are up north and we're there with her whole family. Nobody's really regular church goers or anything like that, but it does give us an opportunity to say, Sundays are our day of worship, and if we can we just turn the sermon on, and we normally have a captive audience. It might just give people it gives people an opportunity to at least open up the conversation. Like, why don't you like to go to church as a Christian? I'm just curious. I'm not here to push you into church. I'm not gonna kidnap you and make you come to my church. But I'm just kind of curious. What happened there, and just see.
I'm curious if you're all drinking coffee or Bloody Marys.
I drink coffee in the morning.
Okay.
I've never
you're at the cabin.
Never liked Bloody Marys.
Okay.
If you, I know that look. I get a lot of those looks.
Actually, I actually found Bloody Marys to be an acquired taste myself.
Oh, are they? Okay.
So-
Well, maybe I'm not weird then.
Yeah. But what you really got to try is go to Canada sometime and try a Clamato.
Okay. I'll do it. Why not?
Yeah. and then you can tell me if that's an acquired taste or not. Well, as I said, I wanted to, with the last few minutes we have here, and we're kind of close to the end of our time, but I wanted to touch on that Bible passage I mentioned. I said we were going to wrestle with some things that Jesus says that are difficult. Because whether or not you believe Jesus is God, whether or not you believe he's a Savior, whether or not you trust anything he has to say, the fact is that the Bible is the most well-known book throughout all of the world. And a lot of people say, well, I like Jesus. Maybe I'm not a Christian, but I think he's a good teacher. I think he's he was a good example of morality. There's a lot of different opinions about him. So I think it's important to say, well, what do you even know about him? Well, the only thing we can know is the things that are recorded in the Bible that he actually said. And so we have to, if we're going to say anything at all about him, we have to wrestle with those things. So Mark chapter 11 is the one that we're looking at today. Mark chapter 11, verses 23 and 24, where Jesus says, actually, Taylor, would you read it? Because I've got my Bible app open and it's
I got
King
papers
James.
right
We don't
here.
need to go that way.
Anyway, the good old NIV says, "Truly I tell you, If anyone says to this mountain, 'Go, throw yourself into the sea,' and does not doubt in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours."
Wow. So, Mike, you're a man of faith. You're a pretty strong faith. Have you moved any mountains recently?
Legos.
Lego mountains?
Lego
Okay.
mountains.
All right. Did you throw them in the water? Like throw them in the bathtub?
Threw them in the water.
Or in the pond?
This
Maybe
was-
your pond on your
This was
property?
not recent. This was
Okay.
a while back.
Okay.
Yeah. Built some mountains out of Legos and
And threw them in the
tossed them off
tossed
the
them in
board.
the water. Okay.
That's about it.
But you haven't actually said to a mountain. I mean, Jesus is probably standing on a mountain when he says this too.
Could have been. They were not far off in the distance
Right.
from
right.
where he was.
Yeah.
Generally anywhere there. So
So.
yeah, I mean this goes back to that meme. Trusting in God more, having more faith in God's plan. Sometimes the wrong response people have is just have more faith. Well, you just got to pray more, or you just have to have more. Just trust God more. Jesus here is saying, you stop, ask specifically what you want, and don't doubt that God can do it. Am I, as a Christian, really going to move a mountain? No. But do I often fail to just ask God to do something, but in the back of my mind go, I hope he's listening.
Yeah.
I hope he's listening. I don't think he can really do this. This person's probably not going to get better, or we're probably not going to get out of this financial situation, but I don't know what else to do. I'm just going to pray.
Right. Right.
That's the wrong thing to do here. And Jesus is saying, you can move mountains. Talk to me. Tell me specifically what you want, and know that as you ask those things, and I'm not asking for, I'm not abusing prayer by asking for something that I don't really need but I think I want. But I'm praying with boldness and confidence that this is what God can do because He's God. And so I'm specifically going to say, Lord, if it's your will, heal this person. Take care of my wife, my spouse. Take care of my kids. Get them through this, get somebody through depression, whatever it may be, and really believe that God's will can be done here, not what I want to happen.
So I suppose you might say, if it was something that God needed to happen for His will to be accomplished,
Absolutely.
that this mountain needs to move,
Yes.
then if I trust that God can do anything, that mountain's going to move. But I'm not saying the test of faith is, can I say move mountain and it moves? But the test
Exactly.
of faith is, do I believe that God can deal with the real stuff? I do a lot of marriage counseling, and this is a thing that comes up a lot, where I have couples who are just convinced there is no fixing this. And I often want to put the question to them, who are you trusting when you say that?
Right.
If you're trusting yourselves, you're right, there is no fixing this. But I believe Jesus rose from the dead. Do you believe that? I'll usually ask couples that, do you believe Jesus rose from the dead? And if they say yes, my answer to that is, so why do you think He can't raise your marriage?
Yeah.
That's the real question is, do you believe God could move any mountain for you? And if you don't, then Jesus says, well, it's not going to happen. But if you trust Him, He's challenging you, right? And He's maybe being a little bit hyperbolic, but He's also saying, hey, you got to trust me and it's going to happen.
Yeah. And the cynical side of us, or just the humor side, whatever you want to look at, says, well, so what if I just, if I ask for $1 million, that's maybe what a child will respond with. Well, I'm just going to ask for $1 million then, or I just want to be done with college. The first person who starts college as a freshman, well, just give me my degree then. I'm going to pray for my degree. Silly things like that, yeah, God could do something like that, but is that helpful? Is that good for you? Do you need that?
And are you going to pray for that if you're really tuned in to God? Like, 'cause
Exactly.
Jesus is saying, if you really believe who God is and what He's done for you,
Your
it's kind of that
prayer is
idea of where we started with those questions from Carlton, where, the question about what is my will going to be like in heaven? I mean, if my will is conformed to God's will, if I'm saying, God, I want what you want, my prayer is not going to be, God, give me $1 million no matter what, even if it's bad for me. My prayer is going to be, God, give me what I need to accomplish your mission.
Right.
And I'm trusting that. And I think maybe that's part of the key to understanding Jesus' words here is that he's challenging you, do you trust me?
Yeah.
And that's maybe the big challenge if you're watching this and you're saying, I'm not sure I believe in Jesus, is to ask that question. Well, if you like Jesus at all, Jesus is saying, I don't just want you to like me. I want to know if you trust me. And that's where we're left tonight. And if you're a Christian already or a Jesus follower already, Jesus says, I want you to trust me.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wrap.
I
That's
think
it
it's a
for
good way to end
tonight's
it, yeah.
first, our first session of Pub Theology of the year. We're glad that you joined us. Thanks for being here.
Can we thank our new producer?
Oh, yeah,
we didn't even
absolutely.
bring that up.
Yeah, we didn't even mention it. Hey, just so you guys know, if you're watching this and maybe you've seen the cameras shifting here and there and some other stuff happening, we have
So cool.
a new person on the team. Her name is Lauren. She's in the room here with us. She's at the computer and the controls. She's making sure everything's going smoothly. Lauren, thank you so much for being a part of this. This is awesome
Real
because it takes
MVP.
the weight off of us to do all of those things. So we're really appreciating that. Hey, one other thing, we have shifted a little bit our social media presence. We used to be in a Facebook group. Now we're actually using more public-facing page. We're doing that so that it's a little bit easier for you to like and share this video. So if you have a chance to do that, we would love for you to do that. We're going to drop that in the chat, I think, here, so that you can find that page. That's it's on Facebook. It's a Facebook page. It's called Pub Theology Green Bay. So when you find that page, click like, share, all that stuff so that people can follow this. It's a great way to get this video out to other people, and it helps us because you know what? The algorithm can use all the help you can get. Hey, we're live here at Copper State every first and third Thursday of the month. We'll stream live from this place. And if you would like to join us for the after conversation, we welcome you to show up here at 8 o'clock. We usually hang out in the loft. We're going to turn off the cameras, turn off all the equipment, and we'll have an extra beer, and we'd love to have you here for a conversation. So if you find yourself in Green Bay, please don't hesitate to drop by. In the meantime, thanks for joining us. We'll see you in a couple weeks. In the meantime, theologian friends, keep thinking deeply. Bye-bye.